Reaper is an expensive yet very powerful DAW you can fully try out and test before purchasing. I have used Reaper since the beginning of 2015, so at the time of this video about 3.5 years. This series of tutorial videos is aimed primarily towards beginners. In the previous and first tutorial I showed how to link MIDI items, that is patterns and melodies. That is very helpful composing songs containing many repeating patterns, such as especially electronic dance music. In the second tutorial I will show how to equalize instruments, allowing each type of instrument to better stand out, be heard better, and therefore no longer needing to be cranked up so high in volume. Plus it will avoid or limit low bass muddiness and help avoiding peaks in certain undesirable frequency areas. In the third tutorial, I will show a few ways to auto-modulate instruments and effect parameters, including a few cool ways you might not know about. In the fourth video, I will show how to focus effects by using only parts of an instrument's frequency to be effective. But on to equalizing instruments. I make it a habit to EQ every instrument as I insert into a track. Reaper includes a free, quite good multiband equalizer called RIA EQ, which even shows a graph of the current frequencies on the particular track, bus, folder, or master. So let's start with the most important part of dance music, the kick. First I will solo it on a continuous loop. Okay, there we have it. Then in the track overview area, here on the left side, or in the mixer area, we'll click the FX icon for that particular track. If you cannot see it in the left area, you probably need to increase the track height. To increase the track height for one or more tracks, or all of them, simply select all the tracks, hold down the Alt key, and adjust one of the tracks' height and release, and all of them will be the same height. Click the FX button. Here I have the instrument for the kick, the sound from the kick coming from the Synthmaster 2.9. I bought that in Synthmaster 1 last year. It's one of my to-go-to synthesizers. Click FX, add FX, and find RIA EQ and insert it by double clicking. I usually make this window here a lot bigger so I can better see what's going on. So these are the frequencies right now for the kick. As you start out with RIA EQ, there's 4 bands, but you can add as many as you need, or you can delete as many as you don't need. Usually the first is a low shelf high pass filter, and the last is a high shelf low pass filter. The 2 and number 3 are band filters. In electronic dance music, you usually want the punch to come from between 60 to 100 Hertz. Of course, if the kick sound you are using already contains a lot of volume in that area, it may not be necessary for you to adjust. But for this tutorial, let's move band number 2 to around 100 Hertz and decrease it about 6 dB. Maybe make it a little bit narrow. Then not to have too many low frequencies, very low frequencies. I usually cut around 40 or 50 Hertz. All the way down. You don't want the kick to clash with the bass instruments, so you probably want to cut around the 120 to 300 Hertz. So we'll move this over to around 200, make down to maybe about -6, make it a little narrow, the band. And as you can see now, we can actually use the equalizer to sculpt the sound. Just be mindful of spikes around 1 and 5K, as those areas may not be where you want the kick to be focused. Okay, so let's leave this for now. Close this one right here and go on to the bass sound. I have a very simple pulse going on here, nothing fancy in this little tutorial. We'll solo that out, click the FX button. Here I use the 7/1 for my pulse sound. Add rear EQ. Make this window a little bigger. Drag it out. It's such a drag, I know. Okay, so now we do not want the bass sound to interfere with the kick. So we're going to cut everything lower than 120. Oops. And depending on the sound you have chosen, you may want to increase a little bit around 150 or maybe around 200. So we'll make that band a little bit narrow. Decrease a little bit around this area right there. And again, you can sculpt the sound to your liking. Just be mindful of the area around 1 and 5K. We'll leave this for now. Sounds pretty decent. And let's move on to the snare. Yeah, you want a powerful snare. Insert rear EQ. Maximize this window. Alrighty, you don't want the snare to interfere with the kick or the bass, so I usually cut around 200 all the way down. And you may want to bump it up a little bit around 300. I'll narrow this band a little bit here. And it depends on the sound of your snare, but you may want to tweak it down a little bit around 400. And then to add presence and taste to your snare, you may want to consider bumping up around 400, 800, and 3000 kilohertz. So you can sculpt it to your liking. Just be mindful of if there are any spikes in the frequencies in the areas where you don't want to hear that much, for instance in 5K. We'll say that's pretty good for now. Okay, now for cymbals. That is the crash, the hi-hats. I usually cut. Oh, let me solo this hi-hat out here. Actually, let's not do the crash. Let's do the hi-hat right now. Close hi-hat. Insert rear EQ. Make this window bigger. It's not a lot of frequencies down in the low area, but we'll cut everything below 500 anyways, as much as we can. Don't want that to interfere with the bass, with the kick sound, or the snare too much. Sometimes you want to add a little presence around 8K. And this one, we can actually now copy out the other hi-hat sounds. And the cymbal crash, so we'll just right click and copy, or we can do Control C. We'll take that out to the crash. Paste that right there. Hi-hat 2. The difference between hi-hat 1 and hi-hat 2 is a little bit different instrument, and I have them panned a little bit left and right respectively. And we'll do the same for the open hi-hat. Right there. So now for everything else, and in this song it's the clap, reverse, pad, and pluck. I will cut off around 500. Insert rear EQ. Oops. So everything else does not interfere with the kick and the bass too much. And you may not think that a clap has too much below 500, but if we disable this filter I just put in here, you can see there are definitely some frequencies. We don't want that to interfere. We'll copy this one. We don't really hear down there, but there are something, and it can add to muddiness. Do the same for reverse. We'll paste that right in there. For the pads. And look, if we disable that 500K filter, see there's a lot right there. It's unnecessary. We don't hear that much, but it can add to the muddiness. And finally, for the pluck, we'll do the same thing. And again, look here, if we disable it, lots going on in that area. We don't need it. Off it goes. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Now we have equalized all our instruments here. Thank you very much for watching, and please come back to see how I modulate instruments and effects and focus effects in my next 2 videos.